My name is Josh Meredith, and I am a cloud solution architect for Microsoft, and I specialize in Microsoft Teams security and compliance, and have been designated to the state of North Carolina for a few years now, and assisting them with a whole bunch of other things in Office 365. So I'm happy to be here. Our agenda here today is mostly just focusing on collaboration in teams, so understanding teams and channel structure, having to join, organize, collaborate in teams and channels, also managing team meetings, and as well as other managing other aspects in a team meeting too as well. So you guys have been using Teams for quite some time here. And so this is really just designed to be an end user workshop in showing you just how to do some of these basic collaborative things within Teams. And Teams is a multi-platform experience. It allows you to collaborate with people. A lot of you guys are collaborating with people within your organization, within other other agencies, as well as agencies even outside of your tenant as well, which are called guests. And you're managing all kinds of different things, plans, tasks, lists. There's an assortment of different tools. Teams is kind of like the glue of Office 365 because it provides a single pane of glass experience for your frontline workers, for individual contributor employees, and so managers, et cetera. So no matter what role you are, Teams is for many of our customers is the single pane of glass that they're going to for that experience. And you can also integrate third-party apps from Microsoft into Teams. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do as well, and I work with pretty heavily with Michelle and Karen on integrating that. So if there are things that you do want to accomplish or work within Teams, a lot of times those requests go to DIT, where we can discuss and help to deliver those solutions for you guys. In addition to that, Teams runs on SharePoint. So all of your files within Teams are in SharePoint, and this is what can allow you to share files inside, outside your organization. You're able to do things like co-authoring, which I think is a very handy feature to work on documents at the same time. Also searching files across people and chats, and just to find everything that you need. So we'll go ahead with the demonstration here. So the way that I typically do these workshops is that it is mainly all in my demo tenant that I have right here. This is a GCC tenant, just like with what you guys see. If you don't know yet, GCC are government tenants. The features come in a bit later than they do in commercial. So if you've ever been online and maybe looking at our documentation, or you see a feature that is in our documentation, but you don't see it in Teams, it's because you're on government. So things are delayed a bit with government because of FedRAMP compliance. FedRAMP has to approve or certify any feature that we deliver to Teams in order to be able to deploy that to our government customers. And so here we'll discuss what is a team and what are channels. Teams are a team is essentially like a collaboration space, and so that's what a channel is. And in this particular scenario, I have my test user, Cindy Lauper. I also have my other test user, which is Jim Morrison. And so this is Jim right here. I'm going to be doing this demonstration right in the browser. However, if you're following along or if you're using the Teams client, it should be pretty much the same for the things that I'm going to be demonstrating here today. So in this case, we have, when it comes to creating a team, you guys have an approval process that you go to create a team. So if you request a team and a team is being deployed, this is essentially what you're going to go here. And what I've done is created a team called Team Fabulous. We can call it whatever we want. It may be associated with your department. It may be associated with the specific team that you're working on. But the basic structure that you're going to first come out here with is going to be the team as well as your general tab, which is pretty much a default here. In addition, you also have your chats too as well, are really the space that is going to be your one-to-one conversations, your one-to-many conversations. So it's going to be a different space than what you're going to see within a team. In some cases, you might have colleagues that are going to spin up a chat, and it's essentially going to be a group chat. In other situations, it might be that you're going to do your collaboration and your conversations are going to be within this particular team section. So before I go on, I do want to just kind of point out one thing too, is that if there's ever any questions on what to do and you're looking for just help and you want to know how to do something basic, one of the first places I would recommend go is you can just click here, or actually click on the ellipsis here, and you can just click help right here. And by clicking help, what that's going to do is take you right to our in-house training material that we have for teams. If I have all of these different topics here, so we have like teams and channels, which is kind of what we're focusing on here. We can look at all of these different things that you might want to do, and this is a place where you can go. So a lot of the materials, if you don't necessarily want to look online for something, you can just click right in the help. I think Karen, do you guys still have the learning pathways? Or
Yes, we do. You were
okay,
hovering over it
so
just a second ago.
okay, there's also a learning pathways, which I think is called, I know it has a lighthouse logo for you guys, but this is another place too where you can go and also find M365 training and Teams training. So just wanted to share that first as well. So if you have a question of where
I've
to go,
lost the presentation.
okay, can anyone else see my screen?
I'm able to see
I
it.
see it.
Yeah, I'd say if you're having issues, try logging off,
I got it.
getting off a VPN and trying to get back on.
Right.
Okay.
So in this case, so Cindy requested a new team that's been approved, and she now has a new team. And so Cindy is the owner of a team. If you're the owner of a team, you pretty much have godlike privileges on that team. There's also a SharePoint site that gets spun up in an email that also is spun up in addition to that. So the first thing that Cindy's probably going to do is she's going to want to go ahead and manage that particular team. In this case, we can see that Cindy's the only owner. One thing we do recommend is to have at least 2 or more owners. The other thing to think about too is if you are an owner of a team, you are managing the access control to that team, which is important. You're responsible. So if you manage a team that has sensitive data on it, be mindful of the people that you add. You want to make sure that your same access control principles that you would apply to those resources, that you would also be mindful of that as well. You don't want to give someone access to something that they shouldn't already have. In this case, we can see that I have a mod administrator. I have Jim Morrison, who is also a member, and I can manage their permissions right here. So if I want to promote the administrator to be an owner, I can go ahead and do that. I can also demote as well. And if I want to add additional members, I can do that. Also, I could go ahead and add, let's see, I could go ahead and add, say, like Darth Vader if I wanted to my, as a member, and whoever else that I want to add, they will go ahead and show up in here as well. If I've got teams if someone requests to be in a team, those are going to show up in these pending requests here. And there's also other settings that are important to be mindful as well. As the owner, you can control what members can do and what members can't do. That's one of the things you may want to do. You may want to not allow members to add or remove apps. You can also control what your guests do. So your guests are going to be the people that you've invited that are outside of the North Carolina tenant. And so one of the first things you might want to do is to go in here and set whatever governance controls that you want to set to that particular team. If there are certain things that you want members to do or certain things that you don't want them to do, for instance, you may not want members to be able to delete their own chats and things like that. It's important to go ahead and be mindful and to go into your settings here if there are any government controls that you want to apply as well. So initially, you're going to start off with a general channel. If I click here and then I go to, or actually I want to click on the ellipsis here, I can go ahead and add a channel here. And so let's say we'll just name this one operations. And a channel can be it's your own collaboration space. It's important to think about your structure of how you're going to plan this out. It might be that you have maybe a departmental team, and then you might have separate channels that are going to represent the different sections of that different department if it's a larger team. It could be perhaps different roles that you have. If you have a role, a different channel for specific people in certain roles. It could also be based on a project that you have. It could be based on a number of different things. You guys right now, the only type of channel that you can do is a standard channel. You can also put in a description here as well. And so another thing you can do is automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. And what that will do is it'll automatically make it available right here. So in this case, if I go ahead and click create on this, and I really recommend for those channels that are really more important that you don't want to be buried, that you want your members to be able to see. So like if I go over to Jim right now, I'll be able to see that operations channel right here. And one of the things that uh, one of the things that you can also do is to set up what is called channel meetings. And so a channel meeting is essentially a meeting that is going to it's gonna go ahead and invite everyone that's in that team. It's also going to have some behavior that we're going to see right here in our chat area as well. So if we go up here, can you guys see my mouse okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, I want to make sure. Otherwise, it's really difficult to follow along. So in this case, we've got meet now. We've also got schedule a meeting. This is a little bit different than what a regular meeting that you might do in Outlook, right? So like a lot of times you might be scheduling meetings in Outlook, and you're probably very familiar with that. You can do it even from the Teams calendar as well. But this is in a channel meeting. What it's going to do is it's going to create a meeting that's going to invite all these people. Now, if I do Meet Now is just going to spin up a conference call actually for everyone in this operations team. So like, let's say there is, maybe there's a fire you have to put out. Maybe there's a maybe there's an incident or something like that to where you really just want everyone to meet right now. I'm going to turn my microphone off because I don't want feedback. And so when I do this and I go to say Jim here and I look in operations, if Jim happens to be looking in this channel, he's going to be able to see that. But if he's not, it might be something to where I might need to copy the link for this particular meeting and then go ahead and chat that to Jim. So if I go back to Jim here and, I might be able to have to send him the link to that particular meeting. And if he doesn't have it, or if he's just not paying attention to the chat window. So that's something to think about if you're going to do a meet now. If people are constantly have this particular chat up, or then they're likely to see it. But what it does is allows the members of that channel or that team to go ahead and just click join right here. And so from there, the parties can get together, and it's essentially just a way to spin up a quick conference call with everyone within that team without necessarily just having to create a new chat. And so if something were to come up, or if you were trying to address something quickly, that's one way that you could do that. Go ahead and leave this meeting here. The other thing that you can do is you can also do a channel meeting or schedule a meeting. So if we go ahead and do schedule a meeting here, and let's call it Operation Sync meeting. In a channel meeting, it's going to go ahead and it's going to already invite everyone that is in the channel. We can see that we also have some lobby settings that we can quickly access here. With lobby settings are really key. So if a meeting is really important and you have a mixture of guests, if especially like these kind of meetings, like there's 473 people right now. So whenever you're doing those kind of town halls, or maybe some sort you're addressing the public in some sort of way, you really want to pay attention to your lobby settings, in which case you may want to just go ahead, like in this kind of meeting, we actually did everyone because we don't want someone just to be like the gatekeeper and allow everyone in. However, if a meeting is more sensitive, I would recommend to do uh, to do something more restrictive, where you can say people in my org and guests. So what this will do is that if you are on the tenant, or if you're a guest on that tenant, then it's just going to go ahead and let you in that meeting. If I do people in my org, that is going to only do the people with on the North Carolina tenant. Or I can do people who are invited. That's going to only be to the people that were actually invited. So if someone shares a link or copies a link to someone else, they're not just going to be able to get in automatically. And so depending on the sensitivity of that meeting, it's really important to be mindful of your lobby settings, and to think about that for if you're an organizer. You can also do only organizers and co-organizers. And so an organizer has the rights to pretty much manage everything in the meeting. A co-organizer is going to be someone like your assistant, or somebody else that you would want to be able to do things such as like end the meeting, handle recordings and things of that nature as well. One of the things you can also do is you can send out personal invites. And so what that will do is
Josh, you've been muted. I'm not sure what's happened there.
sorry. All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. So in a channel meeting, you can also, in addition to that, add people who are not in that particular team. So it's still a meeting just like anything else. It's going to go ahead.
Okay, we've
I
lost
got,
you again.
yeah, I got muted again. So you can, yeah, I keep getting muted for some reason. So you can add other people who are not necessarily a part of that team. It could be that maybe you have a regular sync meeting, and you want to add somebody in because they are maybe have particular insight, but you can add additional people who are not on that particular team into a meeting like that. So if I go ahead and just click send here, we're going to go ahead and see that the meeting has been scheduled. It's going to create a post. It's also going to show up in people's calendar. That ding there was because because it showed up on my calendar. So if I go to Jim here, he's going to be able to see it in the channel as well. And if I go to his Outlook, then I'm also going to see this particular meeting here. And I can go ahead and RSVP to it here. I could also RSVP to that particular meeting in the Teams calendar. So there's more than one place to do that. If I open up here, I can RSVP and I can go ahead and accept it. And so from there, I can go ahead and join this particular meeting. And I'll go ahead and join here. And then I'll go ahead and join with Cindy where we have, and from here we can have our a persistent chat. I can Cindy, and so we have all of the chat features that you would be able to see within that you would normally be able to have within any particular type of meeting. So I'll go ahead and leave this particular meeting. The other thing that you might want to do as well is set up your notifications for channels. So if you notice, Cindy is a part of a lot of teams, and this is my test tenant. So this is like a tenant that I use to help a lot of my customers. So that's why I have a lot of teams that are in here. But one of the things to think about is going to be your channel notifications. You might be added to a lot of teams. That's going to create a lot of different noise. You might be added to teams that you really didn't want to be a part of, or you might be added to teams that are really, really important to you. And so it's important to go ahead and configure notifications on those teams. You might have some teams that you really want to amplify a notification, or some teams that you may want to suppress it, right? Just like Outlook, how you can use inbox rules and things like that um, to manage your notifications. You'll want to do the same thing with your Teams channels. You may want to say that, yeah, I do want to get a banner and feed of any new posts. I may want to include replies, or I may just want to turn this off, depending on the level of importance of that particular channel. Another thing that you're probably going to want to do is also pin a channel. And I can tell you from experience that pinning channels and pinning chats is definitely your friend. So if I pin this particular channel here, it's going to show up at the top, right? Because in this case, you might have so many different teams that it can be pretty daunting to kind of go in there and keep track of this. And what I've done is, so my team channels that are a higher importance and that I'm more active on, I go ahead and pin that here at the top. In addition to that, you can also pin chats as well. So if I have a certain chat with Jim, maybe Jim is my boss, or maybe I've spun up a group chat and I kind of use that group chat to just keep track of my team members or things that I do on a day-to-day basis. I could also pin that as well to help me organize that. We'll go back to Teams here. I can also go ahead and search if there's a team that is public. I can search for that particular team. For the most part, most of your teams might not be public just because of the nature of having multiple agencies on it. But I can search for particular teams in that way by just searching for it there. For the most part, most of your teams are probably going to be private, and you're going to be added by a particular owner. But if you do have a public team, you can also search for it that way. One of the other things that owners can do, let me find team. Fabulous. So is that if we manage this particular team. You also have analytics that you can look at as well. So you have the ability for owners to analyze and look at the engagement that different users are having. Let's say if you're a manager and this is your team, you can look to see who is engaging the most. In looking at meetings right now, I just don't have any data because I just created this team, but it's something for if you're an owner to go and look at your analytics of a particular team and and be able uh, to look at those analytics. You can also um, look at analytics in a couple of different views here. You can go back farther if you're wanting to look and see which ones are your active users, active guests, how often are people posting. This can be helpful too if you're trying to do access reviews for particular guests. If a guest may or may not need to be a part of that particular team anymore, you can use your analytics to help you manage that. So if we go back to our team here, um, some of the other things that you can do, you have a multitude of different apps that you can add to a team. And that can be anything from a office, any kind of office app. It can be a multitude of different apps. And that's one of the handy things that people like, where you can, if you're a team owner, you can customize it a certain way. Every team does come with a OneNote. So if you click on OneNote here, you can go ahead and it's gonna automatically use the default team notebook. It used to be called Wiki, but since then we've replaced the Wiki with OneNote. So if that's something that you're looking for, you can do that here as well. In addition to that, you can also add specific forms that are attached to that team. It could be a Word document. If it's a blank Word document, or by default, it's ideally going to look for a document that is actually on that particular team, as well as any kind of PowerPoint or any kind of Office documents as well. If there are certain apps that you don't see here, if there's third-party apps that you would like to integrate with your with your team, and you don't see it there, it's more than likely because it needs to be vetted by your security teams. It needs to be it or you just need to have access to that. So if there are third-party apps, you can submit requests into DIT, and that typically is going to go through like an approval process for third-party apps that you would like to integrate into Teams. Ideally, though, most anything that you have as a tab, like if it's a Word or if it's a document, you want that document essentially to live on that particular SharePoint site or on that particular Teams. Team is just it's a container for both files. It's a container for chat messages, and you want to make sure that you're keeping that all in that particular repository. So you want to think of a team as like a repository. If you're familiar with SharePoint, SharePoint is essentially like a shared repository that is a place where multitude of people are going to come. Like as people come and go, that repository is essentially going to stay there. We go back to posts here. We can see that in our chats we have a persistent and threaded chat, right? So if I can reply to the mod administrator. I can at that particular mod administrator so that it gets their attention. Adding someone is a great way if you want to get their attention. You can do that, and then in this case the mod administrator will get um, a, a notification that's going to be down at the bottom here. It's a persistent chat, so even Jim can go ahead and reply as well. And which channel was that? The general channel. So Jim can also make any kind of reply. Everything is going to be it's like a thread, right? So it's like a bulletin board thread where you have everything that is a particular conversation is going to be threaded. It is a persistent chat, and it's all going to be contained in there as well. Also, creating a post is just simply clicking here and go ahead and create a post. If you do, you can, it's just like an email where you can add subject parameters, and you can have hypertext capabilities where you can post different types of messages here as well. And so one of the things that you can do is you can change the post type of what you want this to be. By default, it's going to default your post type as a post. But you could also do something like an announcement as well, where you can put in a headline. We can say like congrats to Cindy, and maybe she got promoted. Um, um, or maybe it's something, it's some kind of it could be any kind of announcement. It could be something that's happening, some kind of event that's occurring. And so from there, Jim can go ahead and format a message and create this particular announcement. You can also edit pictures and things like that. Like if I wanted to upload a picture, I could do that as well and kind of create this like customized announcement page that is essentially curated for that. And so I can just go ahead and based on that, I can make this particular announcement. So by changing it to an announcement post, you're able to change sort of like the theme that you have as well for it. Another thing too is um, you don't have to uh, you can make an announcement to where it can go on multiple channels. So if you wanted to, um, let's say that you have a team, and then maybe you have different business units in that for each channel, and you want everyone in that team to go ahead and get that announcement. I can go ahead and just make that a multiple channel announcement, and I can go ahead and I can add other channels. I can add other teams as well. So if I want to blast an announcement to a much broader range, I could do that and then add in whichever channels from whichever teams that I am a part of or that I'm an owner of in order to target that particular announcement across multiple teams, multiple organizations. And so you can do that here. You can also define who you want to reply. Maybe you just want this to be an announcement and you don't want just everyone to reply. You just want specific people to be able to, um, well, you don't want everyone to reply because you don't want to create a lot of chatter. You're just trying to make a particular announcement. You can apply these types of governance controls right here. All right, so going on to files. Files are a really big key to Teams. On the back end, your files are a SharePoint. This is all SharePoint. And one of the things you can always do is if you click on the ellipsis right here, you can click on Open in SharePoint. And now we're in SharePoint. So we have a bit more features that we can do in SharePoint here. A lot of you are probably already familiar with that as well. But we can see I can download this particular folder. I can export this table, or if this is a list, or if this is in this case this is a document library. I can export this into Excel. I can also perform Power Automate rules, and then I can create alerts and things like that. So if you have like um, a document library, and there's a lot of it's something that you really need to to pay attention to, like any kind of changes to any kind of documents. You can create alerts here, and this is stuff that you see in SharePoint. So if there are, you're kind of getting some more added functionality. For the most part, a lot of the most of the general things that you can do, you can do it already within Teams, but the you can also open it in SharePoint, because that's what it basically is. It's a SharePoint site on the back end, and each channel actually is just a folder on that SharePoint site document library. So we can upload, we can share things. If I click share here, what that's going to do is it's going to share this folder to someone else. So what I could do is I could add, say, like Dak Prescott here, and here's the folder. And so what that's going to do is Dak doesn't have access to the team. He can't see the chats, but he can see the files. Just be careful, right? Make same thing with if this is access control. You don't want to overshare. You want to make sure you are sharing with people that specifically need access to that. So it's important that that you're sharing correctly, especially if there's sensitive data. It's something that you want to think of as well. We can also copy the link if I want to just send Dak, hey, this is the link to this particular uh, file share. I can do that also. One of the big things that I think you might want to do is to go ahead and sync. So if I go ahead and hit sync here, it should open up OneDrive, and I have to sign in with OneDrive. For the most part, you should already be signed in with OneDrive, and what that's going to do is I think it's going to ask me for MFA. But what that's going to do is go ahead and sync all your files to, in fact, I'm just going to my Authenticator app, and it's just making me sign in because I haven't signed into OneDrive for this particular account. It's trying to verify my face. But syncing files is very helpful, right? Because let's say you want, these are files that you work on a lot. They're files that you're going to co-author. It's going to make those files show up in your Explorer. And so now if I go to like Windows Explorer, those particular files are going to show up there. Let me see if this is. And so it'll show up in your Windows Explorer, and you can essentially work on those files there.
Judge, I have a question when you get a chance.
Sure.
Judge, this is Victor Miller. I get a lot of questions regarding permissions. Let's say they want to create a team for collaborating with vendors outside the agency, but they don't want the vendors to be able to view the rest of the documentation. Let's say there's applications that they are actually sending out and for them to fill out. They don't want all the vendors to have access to the rest of the applications. What can they do in that case?
So good question. There's right now we have a feature called a shared channel. Where is it? Where's my shared channel? I do add channel. That's interesting. Hold on, let me go. Oh, because I'm not an owner, that's why.
Hey, Josh, we don't have shared and private channels enabled, so I'm not sure how far you want to go into that, but we can.
Yeah, I was going to
Victor, we
mention
can talk
that.
offline about it, about your requirement.
So
All right,
yeah,
thank
so
you.
you can. We do have a feature called shared channels. It's not enabled on the tenant yet, but I am seeing more and more requests to do that. The other thing that you could do is just give them access to the files. Is it just files that they need access to?
Well, it is different. There's different scenarios depending on their needs. And, in general, that was just the question that I wanted to ask. But if there is a, there's a growing need for that feature, and it's kind of like if they don't have that feature, they are requiring a separate solution, which it's actually um, it's kind of like a stop point for the entire teams on their end, like, and that's why I'm bringing this up.
Okay, well, this
Yeah,
isn't the forum for that. So if you want to get with me and we can discuss, we can take your requirement and kind of figure out a solution for everybody. I just don't want to get too in the mud right now with this session.
yeah, you can do, like, if you click share here, it'll just give that person access to that files. And you should be able to do that because it's essentially just using SharePoint. So if you need more granular control of sharing, you can do that. The rest of it, yeah, you would have to, you can just put in a ticket to DIT and discuss like what your collaboration solution and what your requirements are. And if if like a policy change is what needed to be done, then yeah, you can discuss that with DIT as well. Um, so you do have other capabilities, like you can, within SharePoint, like you can add a document library, which a document library is just basically a folder file that, or file folder that's within that particular SharePoint site. It's kind of like you could create another document library. You could also just create another channel. But if you just needed like a document library and you didn't necessarily want to have any kind of like chatting capabilities around that, you could add another document library. Of course, you could just add another folder as well. So there's a multitude of different ways that you can organize that. Let's see here. And we'll go over and look at the calendar as well. So your Teams calendar it's very similar. It's synchronizing from your Exchange calendar, and there is some different capabilities that you'll see. There's going to be things that you might see in the Teams calendar that you don't see in Outlook, and vice versa. You do have some of the same particular views in which you can like look at a day. You can look at if you want to look at an agenda view or work week. I kind of prefer work week. And there's some additional things that you can do. Let's say you have this meeting and there's some things that you want to go back into that meeting. If you open that meeting in Outlook, it's going to be a little bit more limited. However, if you open it up in Teams, there's going to be some additional things that you can do. So in this case, like when I open this up, let's see, yeah, I'm Cindy, so I'm the organizer. I can go ahead and I have in the details right here. Maybe this meeting is on the books, and I want to go ahead and create an agenda. I can go ahead and create a OneNote here, and we'll just call it agenda. And then in here, I could go ahead and put in meeting notes for the like an agenda for that particular meeting. It's going to go ahead and use OneNote. Why it's actually go ahead and create a OneNote here and just I could create a new I could go ahead and create a new notebook. I could also go ahead and edit a particular notebook, and I can create an agenda there. You're also going to see things like the chat. So the persistent chat that we had before, if let's say you organized a meeting and you're going to be late, you can go ahead and just access the chat from there. You just want to make sure you're doing it from the Teams calendar. In your details here, these are very similar. These are all the different things that you're going to see in Outlook. So you have, like, if you needed to add additional recipients, you're also going to see your meeting options. And I do kind of want to go over the meeting options here because I think that this is really key, and I get asked about this all the time. So with meeting options, like depending on if the meeting is, if it's like a town hall that a bunch of people are on, or if it's just a small meeting with a small group of people, you really want to, as an organizer of the meeting, you really want to dial in those different options and make sure that it's set the correctly. Like for instance, for these workshops, there was a lot of pre-work just to make sure that the meeting options were set. For the most part, with Teams, you can have up to 20,000 people in a meeting potentially. Once you get past 1,000 people, then it goes into like a view only mode. So for the most part, Teams meetings have kind of replaced live events. You just want to make sure you apply your governance here in the meeting options. We discussed the lobby settings before, but there's also a lot more things that you can do. Like I can say, if it's a sensitive meeting, I probably don't want people dialing in to bypass the lobby. If it's a super large meeting, I probably might want to turn that on. End-to-end encryption, you have to be enabled for that to do that. So does the other person. For the most part, in state and local government, it's not as much a requirement. However, that is a feature there if it is more of a requirement. Watermark, these are Teams premium features, so you're probably not going to see that unless you have a Teams premium license. If that's something you're interested, you can ask DIT about that. But some of the things you may want to do is you may want to either allow mics or allow cameras. You may not want to do that. Like if it's a large meeting, I recommend not allowing cameras for attendees, just because if you have like 400 people and they all turn their camera on, it's going to degrade the quality of that particular meeting. If it's a small meeting, then by all means, go ahead and allow that. So depending on the size of the meeting, I recommend make sure that you're going in and setting these settings here. In case someone has their mic on and maybe there's a lot of background noise. That way you can have a more successful meeting. There's also more governance controls, like you can see reactions, attendance reports. One thing about the attendance report is organizers and co-organizers can see it. Other people can't. So you want to make sure that if you want other people to see the attendance report, that you're allowing them as a co-organizer. Meeting theme is a Teams premium feature. You're probably not going to see that unless your agency decides to purchase Teams premium licenses. But we do have themes where you can have like logos and backgrounds and things like that to match a particular theme. Roles are very critical, actually, to the success of this team. Like for instance, for this particular meeting, we've got 421 people. We have an instructor, and I'm sharing my screen. We also have other people that are leading the meeting, such as Karen and Michelle. And so it's important that you're setting your roles properly, right? And you want to do this before your meeting, ideally, right? So you can have a co-organizer. So in this case, I could add Jim Morrison as a co-organizer. That gives Jim the ability to go in here and edit these options. In a large workshop like this, it's really helpful to have multiple organizers, so that way you can man different things. You also may want to, in this case, like for this type of meeting, we would just want specific people to present. We don't want someone to just go ahead and accidentally click the share button or take over. You would want to make sure that is specific to whoever you want it to be. Now, if it's a meeting that, maybe just 4 people, then yeah, you would want everyone to be able to present. That way, if you have multiple people that are sharing their screens. If you do people in my org and guests, it's just going to allow pretty much everyone that's like a regular employee in North Carolina tenant. It's going to allow them and your guests. So they're your guests. Those are people that have been invited, that you're collaborating with externally. And you can also make it just organizers and co-organizers. So if I click this, then only Cindy Lauper and Jim Morrison are going to be able to present. You can also turn on language interpretation here. This can be helpful if you are needing accessibilities, if you're, like for DHS type or DHHS type agencies. We're actually working with them with about accessibility. But what you can do is if you have like deaf or hard of hearing interpreters and you want to notate those interpreters, you can do that. And you can also which will also give you the capability to expand that to make those windows larger. You can go ahead and put in a source and target language. So if we're interpreting, or actually for interpreters would are going to be for people that are that are going to be language. So if we're going from, say, English to Spanish, then you can do that in here as well. You can also decide if you want to hide attendees' names. Maybe it's public and you don't want everyone to see. And then you can also do things like record and transcribe automatically. One thing to be aware of with that is that if somebody joins the meeting like 30 minutes before, it's going to go ahead and start recording then. So if you are going to do this, you may want to dial down your bypass lobby and make sure that it's something like organizers and co-organizers. That way, someone just doesn't come in the meeting and go ahead and turn on transcription. So you can go ahead and set all of those different options there. You also have an attendance report. And so in your attendance report, this is what the organizers and co-organizers can see. And so you may want to see, did someone attend? Did someone not attend? This data is also in e-discovery, you guys. So I get asked this question a lot, that somebody wants to do an investigation. Was so-and-so in that meeting? Well, it's in the e-discovery, it's in your mailbox. So if you ever need to get that information, just you guys have e-discovery managers for each for each agency. So you are able to look this up in e-discovery if you if you don't have access to the attendance report. We can also look at engagement. We can see like if people had reactions, if people had cameras on or not. So we have all of these analytics of that particular meeting that is enriched in here that you can also see. In addition to that, you have other apps too, right? Like you may want to create, let's see, see, where's my whiteboard? Oh, there it is. You may want to go ahead and create a whiteboard, and you can go ahead and do that. You can pre-populate that in the meeting. So in this case, I'm the organizer. I'm Cindy Lauper, right? Whoever creates the whiteboard, it's going to be stored in their OneDrive, just FYI. Actually, this is a Teams meeting. So in this case, since this is actually a Teams channel meeting, the whiteboard will be stored on that particular person on SharePoint. However, it's just a regular meeting. It's going to be stored on OneDrive. And so I see we have 5 minutes left. I want to go ahead and give some time for question and Q&A, if that's okay. Does anyone have any questions for me? Sure, Hugo.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I was wondering, in your opinion, what kind of app would best fit what I need? So I'm using Excel to have like a calendar for outreach events for my team, so we know throughout the year who's doing what. I was wondering, is there a different application than Excel that's user friendly in Teams to show like I'm gonna be in Hendersonville one day and then my other teammate's gonna be in Wilmington, and we could describe what we're doing in each event we're at.
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways you could do that. So like what you could do is just use a team calendar. So if we go to, so like, let's say we're in our general tab and I can do channel calendar. And so a channel calendar is going to be a calendar that it's gonna be pinned to that team's mailbox. So if I click add right here, we'll just call it, you can give it whatever name that you want to. And so now we have a calendar that everyone in that team can see. And we can, we can track like that particular schedule that way. Another way is to use Planner. So if I do Planner, and we're going to call it, it's going to, in this case, we would create a new plan. It's going to create that plan in that team. And so, because we're not using an existing one, so you can just hit save here. But what you could do is create like tasks that are for that. So I could go ahead and do the thing, right? So we just have a task. I'm going to set the due date to be Friday. I'm going to assign this to myself. And did it assign? Okay. And then I'm going to add this particular task. And what that will do is it gives you a schedule view of it.
Oh, okay, that's better. Because I was
Yeah.
playing around and I was using like I think shifts, but then I didn't have access to shifts, so I was like, oh, so I just stuck with Excel.
Yeah, you could you could do Excel and you could just add like the Excel document here as a
Yeah, that's what I
tab in
did.
the team. Yeah. But to kind of track like with Planner, what's cool is there's in that particular task, you have all these notes, you can add items, you can have attachments, so you can kind of have in this case let's say like my start date is this right here, my due date is that, and what that will do, see, here we go, we have this schedule that you can see right there, and
I
it's
think I
based on
have
a
a
particular task.
question related to that. I typed it in the chat, but I don't know if there was a response. How do you use the same link on multiple calendar days for invites? Where you do recurrence, that only seems to work for like Saturdays or Fridays or Thursdays or period. But what if you have, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday meetings multiple times?
It's just like in like you have, okay, so you have like a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, 11, and they're
Yeah,
reoccurring.
I saw someplace that you could copy them in calendar, but and paste the link on multiple days, but it didn't seem to work.
It's a matter of kind of calendar management, right? Which could be done in Exchange or in Outlook, or it could be done in the Teams calendar as well. It could be a channel calendar. So if it's like a calendar that's based for that particular team, you could use a channel calendar for that. But it's really just more or less just like calendar event management at that point, just making sure that you have, if you need it to be reoccurring, you do, and if you don't, then you don't. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, I mean, the specific thing I was looking at is like, let's say you had a 2-day meeting that happened on the 15th and 16th, and then it happened again, on the 22nd and 23rd. And you wanted to have the same link for all 4 dates.
It could get tricky because like when you set your reoccurrence settings, it's going to like want to know, is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? So if the dates are kind of scattered like that, you may just have to create separate calendar entries for that.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just kind of calendar management for that. But if it's like every Tuesday, then that's something where Exchange, you can just say, hey, make it reoccurring.
But couldn't you copy the link from the first calendar invite to the rest of the calendar invites?
Yeah, so a meeting link or join link, you can always just copy and people can just join that same thing. So yeah, you could. Yeah, you can always just create a calendar and I mean, you could always create a meeting and then put in whatever link you wanted to in there. It might be if that might be easier to do. And that way you could have kind of like more, it would keep track of like your persistent chat and things like that. So yeah, that's another possible way. You can always, like if I create a meeting in Outlook, I can always just edit that meeting link. All right. Well, I see we're at time here.
I was just curious real quick, were you using the new Teams or the classic Teams?
This is the new one.
Okay.
So the version 2 right
Because
there.
I used the new Teams. Well, my screen's really small laptop. But I was using the new Teams for several weeks, and then I started noticing that none of my Bluetooth headsets would work with the new Teams, but they do with the old Teams. Just I didn't know if they were still working on, the programming, if it was kind of in a beta or theta or zeta testing.
Yeah, you can put in a ticket for that. Those are the kind of things that I work with Michelle and Karen on a weekly basis. Like if you're having device issues or things like that. So those are some things that we can help you troubleshoot and figure out. But yeah, let us know if you guys are having any issues with new teams. Let us know. We are tracking. We are tracking that stuff, and so work with DIT. And if they have to, if they have to escalate to us or then we're happy to help. And I see we are at time here. So thank you everybody. It was great to meet with you. Like I said, Phil, we're a resource here at Microsoft. So if you guys, if there's anything that you're trying to cook up or any kind of solutions that you are wanting to accomplish, definitely let Michelle know, let Karen, and we are here to help.